Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here this Monday morning with David. And we are talking about this week, perhaps one of the most talked about concepts. I think we have more questions around this topic sent to us by our listeners than any, although I probably say that about a number of topics. Relationships is one of them as well. But today we're talking about the power in pain. And the reason for that is that we're entering a time period which is known kabbalistically to often bring up past issues that we thought were worked out, transformed, things we thought we got over, things we thought we matured out of. And many times this week begins a journey to recognize unfinished business, areas in our lives where maybe we didn't go deep enough, or we tried to speed through a process, and yet there's still some residual pain or discomfort or lack that we need to work through. So one of the things that the Kabbalists teach, and probably one of the most important driving forces behind Weekly Energy Boost, is that knowledge is going to prepare us for the best odds at navigating these coming weeks. And so the more you know about them, the more you can bulk up and reinforce yourself, nourish yourself, so that when you do notice those things, you don't freak out or crawl into bed for winter till the spring, that you realize there is purpose, there is meaning, and there is a gift inside what you're experiencing. One of the signature qualities of those I want to call it's like a plumbing backup. Like you thought you flushed it and there it pops up back again. One of the signature qualities of those moments is pain. We feel pain over the fact that we didn't successfully transform, evolve. I think that I have some ideas that I've been thinking about as I realized where we're going to do this episode. But I think a lot of the pain is created by self-judgment. That we had different expectations, sometimes of ourselves, sometimes of others. And it's painful to realize that we're not there, or other people are not there, or our lives are not where they're at. And I think that's also a valuable thing to look at, is how can we, those things that do bring us pain, where is the perspective shift so that they're no longer painful, but they're actually springboards for growth and transformation.
That's beautiful. And this is obviously going to be one of those highly watched podcasts. I listen to podcasts or watched on Facebook or whatever. So I will say that first, we want to look at this spiritually and kabbalistically, because there's a lot out there about pain, but where does it come from? What's going on? And it relates to this 7-week period that we call also Shovavim, right? The spiritual period where it says that during these 7 weeks,
6 to 8.
Shovavim is 6. I'm sorry, 6.
Shovavim is 6, and then some people say it lasts 8 weeks.
And on leap years, it lasts 8. So it averages it to 7.
So this week it's 6. This year it's 6.
My apologies. Elisheva was right. It is 6. So these 6 weeks begins a process of what the Kabbalists say are the elevation of sparks out of, and I'm using the terminology because it's powerful and we'll explain it, out of the klipot. Klipot are these shells that preserve sparks of light that we've lost through reactive, selfish behavior. And it doesn't matter how spiritual you are, it is inevitable that we all make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are even forced by the Creator, which is a whole another session we'll talk about, in order to lose those sparks, in order to go down into the klipot and re-elevate them, and even more sparks that are lost or captured there. So I actually thought what could be nice, we don't always do it, but to kind of give a history of how these sparks came to be, and then see how that relates to pain. Because it says that when the souls came to this world, originally it came as one soul. One soul. There's different spiritual levels, so you have to kind of use your imagination here, but we all kind of descended different spiritual levels before we came into this physical body. And one of the prior levels was called the level of Adam. And this is the whole idea of Adam and Eve. It's a very spiritual concept. It represents the totality of all the souls of humanity that were encompassed in this one soul that's called Adam and Eve. They were one soul. there was a process that unfolded where there was a short circuit, form of reactive behavior that caused this one soul to descend even further and to shatter into many souls. And in that process, a lot of these souls, or sparks of souls and sparks of light, were captured into the negative side. But all of this was by design. All of this was actually on purpose, because the whole point of creation is to go to the darkest level and then come back towards the light. This is the full circle completion of life, because in order to reveal 100% of something, you need to experience 0% of it. In order to get the greatest light, you must experience the opposite of that to build a vessel for it. And so the fall, quote unquote, of Adam represents how all the souls of humanity and all the sparks of light fell to the depths of negativity. And now we need to elevate those sparks. And every time a soul comes to this world and it does not complete that correction or elevate the sparks it needs to elevate, the soul reincarnates. But many times it breaks up into more souls. Hence why we have more and more people in this world, which are more just fragments of the same soul, fragmenting again and again. And that also leads to a different discussion about soulmates and different partnerships and souls that we meet who we have affinity with, because these are all just fragments of one soul breaking up again and again and again. Okay, so what is pain? Pain is the process that we go through in the extraction of this light. And this is why the greatest gift we can achieve on any spiritual path, but especially one that we double down on here with Kabbalah, the Kabbalah Centre, is to have a new perspective on pain. We think pain is this thing that must be avoided at all costs, because that's where the body doesn't want pain. We think pain is bad. We think when someone humiliates us, this is a bad thing. We think when we're working on something for a long time and it doesn't manifest, this is a bad thing. We think when our partner doesn't love us back, this is a bad thing. We think that health challenges, as much as we should avoid them, prevent them when they happen, this is a bad thing. And of course, these are situations that we want to avoid and we should avoid. But when they happen, when pain comes, this is the process of going down into the shells, into the spiritual klipot, and elevating sparks of light. And these sparks of light then contribute to your new miraculous future, your new destiny, your new love life, your new prosperity. There's no way to achieve the things we want in our lives without going down to elevate those sparks of light. And if you see people who have abundance and stuff in their life that didn't go down, number one, you either don't know enough about their process and you're just following them on Instagram, because no one talks, even when they talk about going down, they're only telling you 2% of what happened. And or a lot of times the Creator gives a person a certain situation because only in that situation can they do their spiritual work, right? Starting in this situation of abundance. For some people, it's easy to find a relationship only because their process starts in the relationship. While for most of us, the process starts when we're single, before the relationship. So you cannot judge, and not everyone fits in the same basket. So pain is a process, and pain has an intelligence, and pain also has an expiration date, and that expiration date is when you have elevated the spark, i.e. you have learned the lesson. That's also how you know you've elevated the spark. The lesson has been learned. How you also know you've elevated the spark is you feel comfortable now with the pain. You have acceptance for it. In fact, the highest level is you reach a place where you're happy it happened. You look back and you say, thank God that happened. If you're still looking back at something painful saying, I wish that didn't happen, you have not completed the process. In fact, you are stuck right in the middle of it. Can you imagine now when you do complete the process, the blessings that will be uncovered? And you will not even know what those, and the fact that it's taking so long means how great it's going to be. So all of this leads to, well, how do I get out of pain? And that's where certainty comes in. That's where acceptance comes in. That's where prayer comes in. All the stuff we've learned in all our podcasts and all our Kabbalah 1, 2, and 3.
I think one of the things that prevents people from extracting those sparks is their perception that pain is punishment, that pain is an indication that we're doing something wrong. So I think it would probably be best for everybody who's listening right now to pause and go back to the beginning of David's explanation, because now, according to what Kabbalah teaches, what David just shared, we realize that pain is essential. It's part of the purpose that we're here. So in our quest to avoid or neutralize any pain or any discomfort that comes up that we may feel, we're actually increasing the future pain. And that's, to me, one of the most motivating teachings, to embrace the pain when it comes up, to be able to not only tolerate it, but to celebrate it and get to that place, like David said, that when you bless it, then you're glad it happened, is in that spot that you realize it's part of your purpose. You're here like a detective, or I don't know. It makes me think of the video games like from the 80s, like Zelda, that you had to collect coins, or, you know, if you look at those moments of pain as opportunities to collect coins so that you can level up, you realize, well, wait a second, I've been pushing this opportunity away, delaying the quest, although, you know, use the metaphor that motivates you. You realize that, wait a second, my job here is to retrieve those sparks. And it's a really important conversation, David, I think also because we all go through periods in our lives where it's dark. Sometimes we face periods of depression, of general low energy, bad mood, exasperation, why bother? Maybe it's in a particular area. Maybe you feel aimless, or it's kind of, what's the point at work, professionally, or maybe you feel it in a relationship, or you feel it in general. The Kabbalists teach that is a specifically important time in your life where you can reach sparks that are even lower than your normal baseline. And I know a lot of people look at those times where they feel bad and they think, this is bad. I should not feel this way. You know, it means I'm doing something wrong. Kabbalah doesn't work. Spirituality doesn't work. I wouldn't feel this way if it was working. The Kabbalists teach that though everybody must go through those periods, and those periods are, you know, imagine if you see that your levels below where you operate normally, you can reach even lower and extract the sparks from even lower places. What does it mean? And I think we need to talk about what it means to extract those sparks. But part of it is the realization, I think, that when I heard this idea, part of what I needed to do was deconstruct that perception. I don't know if it comes from my upbringing or just in general the experience of life, that God is a punishing force, and that if I'm going through something difficult, it's because I'm being punished, or I did something wrong, or I broke a rule. I think a lot of people, whether consciously or unconsciously, they believe that God plays favorites and does good things for people he likes and makes life difficult for people he doesn't. Nothing could be further from the truth. And part of the trick in those moments, the way that we elevate those sparks, especially when we feel down, is by creating an affinity with that force called the light. So that when you feel terrible and you're able to be present with someone else, ask them how they're doing, do a kind act, be sharing, meditate, do something that you know reveals light, even though you don't feel like it, you're elevating sparks that you would not be able, there's light that you can't access when you're in a good mood. There's light that you can't reach when things are going well and you're feeling blessed and grateful and connected and inspired. There's light that you can only reveal when you feel you're in darkness. And so it's important. I love the conversation. I didn't know it was going to go this direction because, again, we're in this month of Capricorn that is, Kabbalistically speaking, one of the 3 negative months of the year, where the tendency is to feel heavy, sad, burdened, life is hard, things are tragic, this is the end of the world. And to be able to recognize that in those dark places, there is light that you can't reveal when things are good, when things are going your way. And then you need to worry, am I connected? Am I not connected? I'm in control. I feel like I'm in control. What's going on here? So part of the shifting out of that reward and punishment mentality, and also making sure that we realize that there is also divine purpose and opportunity in the moments of darkness, of sadness, of struggle.
Another aspect of pain is, and this is why sometimes we have to realize that there's always two perspectives. There's the perspective of the light and the vessel. And in each scenario, you have to realize that what you do is often the opposite and contradictory. So, for example, before you're in any kind of painful situation, things are good. You do not hope for pain. You should not wish for pain. You should not look for pain. Meaning, not look for the suffering. Of course, you should push yourself and to be a giver and a creator that's outside your comfort zone. And that may be painful, yes. But we are not masochists. We are not here, because there are some people.
But there were Kabbalists throughout history that screwed up big time by thinking that their purpose was to
torture themselves.
To torture themselves.
That's right. So, and so there are people, and we need to identify if we are those people, where our belief system is that it is good for me to suffer. It's good for me to be abused. It's good for me to have people talk down to me. It is good for me to not take care of myself. It is good for me, and whatever the reason is, right? Whatever the trauma is, which actually stemmed from even lives before.
It's so subtle. Most people don't consciously think that way, but it's like an undercurrent.
It is an undercurrent, and really the way you can figure out if you do that is if at least something has happened at least twice. You've attracted the same type of boyfriend twice. You've attracted the same type of career that you don't like twice. The same kind of health challenge twice. There's like a pattern. As soon as there's a pattern, it means that there's an underlying acceptance almost that life, it's okay for life to be suffering a little bit. And so we need to all work through that, because that is that like attracts like. And so we are attracting those situations to ourselves, and it is very subtle and is very hidden. And it denotes a low self-esteem and self-confidence. Even if externally it doesn't look that way, deep down inside we think we're damaged. And so it is okay for people to continue to damage us. So that is something that we have to look into. Because if you don't look into it, you will be attracting unnecessary pain into your life. Now, let's say you're working on that and you're doing all the right things, and then pain comes. This means that this is 100% from the Creator to take you to your next level. And when the pain does come, that's when you get excited about pain. Do not get excited about pain before pain comes, because then you bring pain into your life. You do not want that. You have to get excited when the pain comes. That means at that moment, I accept that this is coming from the light of the Creator. There's this phrase called a Sadiq. A Sadiq in Hebrew is often characterized as somebody who's very spiritual, who's very connected to the light, who's a righteous person, right? With these biblical figures, we call them a Sadiq. But it comes from the word matzdik, which means the person who accepts and brings a spiritual justification into everything negative that happens. Not because they're avoiding, but they have simple faith and certainty in the light of the Creator. And so when pain comes, they say, well, of course, if pain is here, even though I tried to avoid it, it's still here. I mean, it's from the Creator, it's for the good, and I accept it, even if I don't know why yet. In fact, better that I don't know why. So if you're going through something painful in your life right now, the reason why it's still going on is you haven't accepted it yet. You haven't embraced it. Stop fighting the current. And we know this. When the current takes you and you fight it, that's the most dangerous thing. But of course, you should avoid the current at all costs. You should fight getting in the current. But when you're in the current, you do not fight it. You don't fight it. Allow the process to unfold. And you will very quickly get to the shore. You will very quickly get to the place where the wisdom will be revealed. And this is called the light of wisdom that is revealed. And when you accept something, this is the light of mercy. I'm throwing out terminology, some more advanced students or people who want to know more. When I'm going against my nature, this is the light of mercy that is revealing from me. It creates a vessel for what's called the light of wisdom, which comes from the light of the Creator. And then it also brings wisdom with it. And the greatest pleasure in life is when wisdom is revealed to us, when we understand why. When we understand that's what it is. It's not like the physical pleasures that we all have, like eating and sex and all these things. These are very, very, not illusionary pleasures, but fleeting pleasures. They come and they go. It's the real pleasure is consciousness. It's understanding. It's wisdom. It's seeing the future. It's vision. Feeling aligned with the light of the Creator.
Another pattern I see that we engage with pain in, and David, I don't know how you feel about me bringing this up, but many times in a person's process and they're working towards something, it can be a relationship, it can be something professionally, it can be even overcoming one's own addictions or limiting behaviors. And right before a breakthrough is going to come, right before you're going to get married, or you're going to get that promotion, or you're going to land that multi-million-dollar deal, a painful situation comes to distract you. It can be physical pain. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm minimizing it, but it can be a physical issue. It can be humiliation, like David pointed out before. Some ugly past comes up, or a person from the past comes up that awakens issues or challenges or pain. Sometimes it sounds funny to say it because I mentioned it before, but it's like an addiction can resurface. And resisting the temptation to fall to that addiction, and I don't even mean only hard addictions. It can be approval, it can be any, and this is one of those signature qualities of this period called the Shovavim, is suddenly you find yourself craving that instant gratification that you totally triumphed over years ago. Suddenly it's back, or suddenly you want that cigarette, or suddenly you want... It almost seems, when you talk about it this way, it seems like it's ridiculous, but I see how it happens for people when they're working toward a really meaningful and powerful goal in their lives. Something comes to distract, something painful, a pain point is awakened to distract them from completing that process. Now, what the Kabbalists teach is that those moments actually, the pain isn't real, meaning it's, again, one of those old movies, old scenarios that's coming back to tempt us into shrinking our vessel. David mentioned the vessel before. It's like, you want this, you're working on closing this huge deal or getting that promotion or graduating or whatever it is. And then suddenly something comes. I'm going to use like a toothache as an example because it's pretty benign. It's happened to everybody. The toothache comes up and all you can think about is the toothache. How can I get rid of the pain? How soon can I get to the dentist? Does anybody have any morphine that I can borrow from a previous surgery or something? What is it? What else do they give for pain?
I guess we're not addicted to those pills.
No, I know there's another one that makes you nauseous. I can't remember.
Not on the tip of your tongue.
I remember somebody telling me about it. But it's those, all I want is to be rid of this pain. Now, is that really all you want? It's not really all you want. You want the multi-million-dollar deal to be signed. You want your beloved to say yes to your marriage proposal. You want to finish your thesis or whatever it is. But the universe is rigged to make sure that we grow our desire, or at least we have the opportunity to grow our desire constantly. And the moment we lose sight of it, right? When you get into that moment of I just want the toothache to be away. I just want my ex-girlfriend to stop texting me. I just want, by the way,
the other way around.
Or the other way around. I can think of a student of mine. It's actually a really funny example. She was being hired by a company that for her ticked all the boxes, right? In alignment with the ethics, excited about the mission and the products, taking her to her next level in her own professional career. And she was reached out to by an old employer saying they want her back and they're going to give her double the salary, and like enticing her to settle for a smaller version of herself. Now, of course, the new job was going to give her the opportunity to stretch and to grow and to, there was going to be plenty of opportunity to stretch and be uncomfortable. But it was like the universe was offering her the same movie at a bigger incentive. Here, you can have all the misery and challenge you had before, but we'll pay you double for it. And she couldn't reconcile. Is it a sign, right? We get spiritual. Is it a sign that this old movie is coming back? Is it a sign that my ex is texting me? Is it a sign that I can't seem to finish this project or fill out the forms or whatever? It's not a sign. It's not a sign. The potential stretch and growth that is in your future, you have a choice in that moment to opt for the old movie or to grow in, and growing implies pain. Growing implies stretch. Growing implies being able to elevate sparks that are unfamiliar and uncharted territory for you. But the answer is never to shrink back to the just let me get rid of this. Just let me get over with it. Just let me not feel this pain anymore. So pay extra attention, not only this week, but in the coming 6 weeks, that you're not looking at what's going on, the distraction or the temptation or the shrinking as a viable option. It is not a viable option. You are not that person anymore. And the old you that wants to go back there is the part of you that, well, let's say it's not you. It's not your true essence. It's not the unique, bright, sparkly soul within you, and do not allow it to interfere with your forward movement.
When you first talked about this idea that right before something great happens, a person will go through pain. And this is something we talked about a lot. And it's a very basic understanding of, okay, pain comes before the pleasure. We get it. No pleasure without the pain. However, if we had to take it deeper, especially for a lot of our more advanced audience who's been following us for a while. So this is a very advanced concept, but I think it's important to talk about it once in a while because we have to introduce it, is that it's not just like a tit for tat. Okay, in order for you to quote, earn this pleasure, we got to just make you suffer a little bit. It's not like that exactly. There's a little more elegance to the pain that we go through. And we have to understand why. Like, what is the real purpose? The real purpose, as the Zohar shares, and the Kabbalists kind of push us towards, is the whole purpose of life is for us to realize, right? The only free will we have in life, according to the Kabbalists, and this is very powerful, the only free will we have in life is to get to a place where we realize we have no free will. Now, this is a very complex and deep concept. What it comes down to is, what does it mean that I have no free will? Meaning that I believe and I know that everything comes from the light of the Creator and not from me. Now, how do I achieve this consciousness? Then this is the irony. The only way to know that everything comes from the light and not from you is for you to do everything and realize that it doesn't work. Then you will have certainty in your inability to achieve anything. And so what pain does...
Wow, please repeat that. Yeah, that was really
I'm afraid
serious.
I'm not going to... Yeah, so this is... I want to share it. It's one of those things that is just kind of like brings more questions than answers, but this is part of why I think we need to introduce these concepts.
This is important.
This is the stuff that we're learning.
No, I'm thinking about people that say that they're trying to get pregnant, or they've been working on a project or a product since they're 12, and they feel like it's the only reason that they're born, and they have to make it happen. Or if they don't, all of their self-worth is going to be obliterated.
This was one of the most profound things I learned from our teachers, and just being in the spiritual community of Kabbalah, is that the hard work we do is not to achieve the result. It's actually to reach a place where we realize that there's nothing we can do. So I am fully anticipating, not that I'm hoping, but I'm anticipating that all this work I'm going to do is going to end up in nothing. But I still have to do it to get to that place where nothing happens, where I then get to a place where I call out to the Creator and say, well, look, I am certain now that I have no way to change this. I have no way to make this money. I have no way to fix this issue I have. I have no way to change this negative behavior. I've tried everything. Imagine a smoker who wants to stop smoking. What he's got to do is try everything to stop smoking. And then fail, realizes, wait, no matter what, this addiction is too powerful, I cannot stop. And only when they've realized that really there's nothing they can do, they call out to the Creator will remove the addiction from them. And then the miracle comes, but when the miracle comes, you realize, this miracle happened only because of the light of the Creator. And that realization is the vessel that holds blessings forever. So the reason why pain occurs is not just so you can suffer a little bit and then just say, all right, well, now I got something good coming, so I guess that's how life is, suffer then good. No, the suffering is to get you to a place where you realize your ego is not doing you anything, no favors, and you need the light of the Creator. And then you have a vessel for the miracle that stays forever. Because what happens is, how do you keep something? Only in the Rav Berg, our teacher said this in a 10 examinations class. He said, you want to keep something? You ask the question, why me? So you're almost like saying, I have this because the Creator arranged for me to have it, not because I did something. Because as soon as you think you did something, you're on your way to losing it. As soon as you think you've done something, you're on your way to losing it. So I got to avoid that consciousness at all costs. The worst thing is when people think that they did something. And I've fallen into this trap many a time. I imagine you have. And it's always resulted in losing the very thing I just got. Who wants to go through that again and again and again? And we see in our society constantly this seesaw, this roller coaster of people who have and they have not. And they have and they have not. Why? Because as soon as they have, they either didn't have the consciousness that it came from the light of the Creator, or they did, but at some point, everyone said, no, you're the man. You're the man. And they're like, yeah, maybe I am the man. And then you fall. You are not the man. Now, when you're trying to achieve something, you need to believe you're the man or the woman. Okay. You need to believe it. Because and this is where the contradiction comes in, because if you and I are going to go give a lecture, on one hand, you have to believe you are a powerful, powerful, powerful speaker. And yes, a powerful channel of the light. But if you don't have self-confidence when you're giving, you're not going to give well. And your audience is not going to hear you. So this is probably one of those things you got to hear again to fully grasp it. And this is one of those concepts that is not understood intellectually. It is something that is given to us in a divine way when we experience it ourselves. There are things that you can read in a book, and there's things that you can only understand when you go through it, because the wisdom is revealed to you.
Okay. I haven't done this in a few weeks, but I want to end this week's episode with a tidbit from Karen Berg, who wrote exactly about this week's energy in 2018. And the story that Karen shares there is one I share with my students so often, maybe a little too often, but I think is really perfect. So get comfortable. It's only 2 minutes. And then
David, can I take off my headset?
You can go, David.
I can take off my headset?
Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay. So where should I begin it? There's a parable I would like to share with you this week about a man who was asked by the Creator to push against a rock. This was to be his work in life. The Creator showed him a large rock, explaining that he was to push against this rock with all his might. This the man did, and for many days he toiled from sunup to sundown, pushing with all his might. Yet try as he may, the rock would not budge. Each night he was sore, worn, and felt his whole day had been spent in vain. The man began to think, why try? I'm never going to move it. These thoughts discouraged and disheartened the man, and he started to ease up with his efforts. He prayed to the Creator, I have labored long and hard in putting forth all of my strength to do that which you have asked of me, yet after all this time, I have not even moved that rock 0.5 millimeter. What is wrong? Why am I failing? The Creator responded, I had only asked you to push against the rock. I never asked or expected you to move it. Your task was only to push. It was I who would move it. In life, we have many beautiful and wonderful moments, but we can also experience difficult times that serve only to allow us to reach for the more fulfilling and joyful days. We may face insecurities, we may face fear, we may face 1,000 no's, we may face great negativity on the path to our dreams, but we can and will make it to our goals if we continue to have certainty in ourselves, the process itself, and the Creator. We have all come to this world, each with a special and unique mission just for us, but we do not have to do it alone. The Creator is there for us, helping and guiding along the way. This week, you may feel the universe pushing you to grow and become more of who you came to the earth to become. This uniqueness, splendor, and rapture that is you is preparing to be born. Let yourself be willing to be free. Let yourself be willing to feel the warmth of the sun on your face and the wind in your hair. This week, we are given the gift to see what is holding us back. Identify them with love, gentleness, and most of all, courage. Write them down, each on a small piece of paper. Are you afraid of failure? Perhaps you doubt your abilities or lack desire. Write them all down and then toss them into a fire. Feel the Creator's hand in your life, removing, one by one, everything that stands in your way to the life you were meant to live. Stand tall and face the beauty of the future and the new sun rising in the distance, and like the flower in its bud, know the day, your day, has finally come, for it has become far too painful to stay the same. Weekly Energy Boost is available on all podcast platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You can also visit us at weeklyenergyboost.com, where we share there some things that we think are interesting and important for our listeners, as well as support us in reaching more people and doing more exciting things by clicking the donate button and contributing toward the podcast itself. The best thing you can do, the most important thing you can do, is stop everything right now and rate, review, and share the podcast wherever you're listening to it. It really does make a difference. It helps us get in front of more eyes and in front of more ears and help make a difference in the lives of people all over the world. So keep it up. There is power in the pain and there is power in the process, so embrace it. And we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.